Hey everybody, bit of an impromptu live, thought I'd just jump on. It's probably going to be the last video from the UK as my visa arrived today. So home, I can go home. Very strange calling Russia home, but that's where our house is. That's where we've based our life, I suppose. So yeah, I've enjoyed being back in the UK. And probably before I get sort of into this video, I just want to say thank you to a few people. So thank you, David and Ella, straight off the bat. They've looked after us famously since we've been here. We've abused their hospitality no end, used their water, electric and all their food. So thank you guys, we do really appreciate it. Lee, I need to say thank you to for the loan of the transportation. Without that, it's terrible. Walking around with no vehicle is not a fun place to be. So I appreciate that, mate. Thank you. Kurt, mate, what can we say that we haven't already said? You may never see this video, but you know where you are in my world. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Dean for all the help. We won't go into, but thanks for all the help. And lots of other people that have helped me with the channel, etc, etc. But I think that's where I am with my thank yous. My kids, I don't need to thank, they're my children. So yeah. So that's that bit out of the way. Why did I decided to do a live today? Like I say, it's probably going to be the last video from the UK, because we will be heading back to Russia soon. So I just really wanted to give anybody that's interested a quick update in what we've been doing, which isn't a great deal. And yeah, just a couple of things that I've noticed since being here that I didn't really notice so much when I was here, probably. So been really just sort of catching up with friends, a bit with the children, just doing odd bits of documentation and stuff that we've needed to do, and yeah, trying to sort of relax and take it easy, I guess. Me and some friends went to London last week. It was on my list of things that I wanted to do, to go to one of my favourite restaurants, and yeah, it was a great time. It's always a great time in this particular restaurant. It's called Goodman's in Mayfair. It's just off Regent Street in a street called Maddox Street. If you haven't been and you have the option to go, I thoroughly recommend it. It's just a very down to earth but classy establishment. Make sure you get the kitchen tour if you do go there. Request a kitchen tour, and the head chef will show you around the kitchen. He'll show you the dry aging process for the steaks. They've got their own blimey, giant fridge stroke dehumidifier, and he talks you through all of that process as well. Thousands and thousands of pounds worth of meat in there. It's really interesting. And then they show you how they cook the steaks, and if you want a steak, it's pretty good, and that's probably an understatement. So if you do get the chance to go to London, go to visit Goodman's. Thoroughly recommend it. So yeah, we went there, had some very nice food as usual, amazing service again as usual. Be prepared to spend some money, you know, if you want good food, nice atmosphere, really good service in London, expect to pay. If you're in my Telegram channel, I did actually post a copy of the bill. So it might shock some of you, to others, perfectly normal. It's London prices. So yeah, it's not going to McDonald's. So bear that in mind. Yeah, so we had a great time up there. Whilst there, just purely timing, pure timing. We were walking from Victoria to Regent Street, sort of ambling along. Came past Buckingham Palace, doing the usual touristy thing, you know, a bit of filming, a couple of pictures, not like I haven't seen it 100 times. Well, I did notice that the guards were quite prevalent, and also by the main gate there were more armed police, which sort of sparked my interest. And then as we came around the front, I saw a couple of motorbikes inside, a couple of police motorbikes with the guys on the bikes. Now, that's not normal. They're not normally sitting there, so that's usually a sign that something's gonna come in or out. And then we saw some dignitaries on the outside being dropped off and walking into the palace. And again, you know, I could have just sort of thought it's people going into the palace, but the motorcyclists inside just made me think that something was coming out. And then shortly afterwards, a lot more police came to the main gate, armed, and they started clearing us back. So at that point I thought, yeah, this is a royal out rather than people coming in. And sure enough, I saw the king. So he stopped, said hello. You know, I was always very close to his mum. Used to go up to Balmoral quite regularly and have tea with Liz. Yeah, no. I am joking, of course. He made a quick exit. I had a lovely white van parked in the way from my vantage spot, which was very unhelpful. But if you do get a chance, the video's on my channel. And it's Prince Charles leaving Buckingham Palace in the car. Just about saw the side of him, and we got a royal wave, and off he went. So that was kind of cool. Just happened to be there at that time. It's a rainy day, wasn't very pleasant, so there wasn't that many people around. So it was kind of cool. I was probably one of the few people that actually caught that on camera. And then we proceeded into London and did a bit of pub hopping. Obviously just drank tap water, clearly, and ate salad for lunch, which that part is technically true. And yeah, just had a thoroughly good time. We were up there, you know, quite a few hours, and it was just a good time, you know. It was nice to catch up with friends and just have some nice food and just relax. Took my son with me as well. So that was cool, because I took him there once before, and that was probably 6 years ago. So it was nice for him to go back. Did a video of the pelicans in the park opposite Buckingham Palace, which I think is St James's Park, but I can't remember. So I'll need to check that. But videoed the pelicans. It's quite an unusual sight in a park in London, but with parrots in that park as well. So, but the weather was a bit rubbish, so we wouldn't have seen any parrots. So that was the London trip. You know, saw all the usual sights, took a couple of pictures. Nothing really that you don't normally do. And now really we're just sort of on the wind down. Like I say, we've waited for the visa to come, which came yesterday. Bang on time, you know, perfect efficiency, but there's always that element in your head wondering whether there's going to be a problem or what if it's lost in the post. But of course that doesn't happen. It's very efficient service, and it's hand delivered by courier, so you know, but you kind of worry about these things. So that's nice. We've got the visa back, so yeah, we're just sort of looking forward to getting home. We've got mains gas and water ready to install. They actually came to install it whilst we were away. I say install it, pretty much switch it on, but we weren't there, so we've got to sort that out when we get back. So that'd be nice. Be nice to obviously see the house, and I've been checking the swimming pool because I've got that on the computer and it's on Wi-Fi, so I can check that anywhere in the world and turn the pump on and off and alter various things on that. So I've been keeping an eye on the pool, and that's been perfect. So it'd be good to get the cover off and do a bit of swimming. And once we get back, probably going to start plans for the sauna. Finally get the sauna underway. There's lots of stuff to be doing around the house. We've got some more fencing to do. Bit of a tidy up in the front garden. Steps and many other sort of half-finished projects. Want to see how the fruit's doing. Saw a video of it the other day. And the cherries and the peaches and everything look pretty good. We're getting to the end of strawberry season out there. So I'm sort of one of the jobs will be going to buy a couple of kilos of strawberries when we first get there, before they disappear, because they are lovely. What else? Well, going to be doing a utilities video at some point when I'm back in Russia, just to show, especially, you know, my out of Russia viewers, my Western audience, something that they probably aren't used to seeing. I certainly wasn't until I went to Russia, and it shocked me initially, surprised me, then made me curious, and now I understand why, and it makes perfect sense. You'll get more of that when I do the video. But it's just the way that they do things in Russia. There's certain things. It's definitely a country that operates on what I would say function over form. So it's far more important that what they do works and is done for a reason than how it looks. So you can mistake parts of Russia for being very run down or very backward at first glance, without understanding why things are done the way they are. But once you understand that, then it makes perfect sense, and very, very logical, which I like, because I like things like that. You know, I don't do stuff for the sake of doing it. It's nice to see things are done for a reason. So that's a video that I should be doing fairly early on when we get back, and then I'll be diving into the Champagne video, getting into sort of a 4 or 5 part series from one of the vineyards that is literally on our doorstep. You know, we drive through the middle of the vineyard where the grapes are, to get to our house. So it literally is on our doorstep. But I'll be doing that at different locations, so that'll be a cool set of videos. So I'm looking forward to that. Been driving in the UK. Drove on the wrong side of the road, I think, twice when I first went to Russia. The first time was when we left the dealership after buying the car. Managed to turn left on a 3-lane highway, driving towards vehicles, wondering that it didn't quite look right, and then thinking, yeah, no, definitely not. So I was going the wrong way down the 3-lane road. So turned that around quite quick. And then didn't do it again until early one morning, probably a few months later. We were going out, I was half asleep, I guess, and came out, just started driving on the left. There's nothing on the roads, luckily, and the wife just started pointing, and I thought she wanted me to pull over into a shop, so I did. And it turns out she was just merely saying that perhaps you should drive on the right as we're in Russia. So yeah, that was another good effort. I did a similar thing when I came here. I went down the wrong side of the road, and again the wife pointed out that perhaps, as we are in the UK, that I should be driving on the left, which I agreed with. I thought that was probably not a bad idea, so I moved over to the left and avoided some carnage. Apart from that, the thing I've noticed about the UK is the traffic is horrendous, absolutely horrendous compared to what I've been used to in Russia. The traffic is awful. There seems to be, certainly in this area, in where we are in Eastbourne, there seems to be no cohesion between the roadworks and the council. I'm guessing it just is a bum fight. It's a free-for-all, I guess. I think they just dig up the road when they feel like it, but they certainly don't coordinate it. So what you have is people digging up the roads pretty much all at the same time, which creates absolute carnage when you're trying to move around. And this a nanny state kind of health and safety gone mad logic, where even if they're digging up the footpath, they'll still put traffic lights in the road, and then they'll make the footpath a temporary footpath going into the road, rather than just closing the footpath. Case in point, the other day we were going to Bexhill, and there was literally some footpath works of about 2 meters square, and they put traffic lights on the main road they put cones out into the road to make the footpath, and it caused absolute carnage, and that was on a Friday. So for the whole weekend, that road was utter carnage for people going to work and just trying to get about. For what? For a footpath repair that they could have easily just closed the footpath, and pedestrians could have just crossed the road and used the footpath on the other side. It's absolute insanity. There just seems to be no understanding or care for a motorist anymore, and trying to get about is a nightmare. At certain times of day, it's just not worth it. And like I say, it just seems to be nobody seems to talk. I mean, I might be wrong, but why they do roadworks all at the same time on the main artery. So every time you sort of think, right, well, I'll take a shortcut to get round this, there's roadworks there as well. It just seems insanity, and it just really needs looking at, and somebody needs to plan these things a bit better. The state of the roads, it's definitely deteriorated. There's a road very, very close to us that's probably got 10 patches or areas of concern, if you like, holes in the ground, and they came out yesterday and repaired one of them. Yep, just patched one. They're there with a truck, they're there with a men, they're there with a kit. Why not do the others? They've literally repaired a section of road about this big, and 2 foot away from it there's another one, and they've ignored that, and they've ignored several others in the road. I don't get it. I used to know people that worked on the roads, and they said that it has to be a certain depth, but in 2 weeks' time those other potholes are going to be that depth, so why not a bit of preventative maintenance, you'd think. So in my view, it really needs a real good shake up, and it's needed it for a long time. But the roads have certainly got worse, to the fact that I would actually argue that the roads in our area, certainly in Russia, are a lot better, and they are a lot better. In the town, they're a lot better. As I've said before, the Russian roads down the side aren't particularly great off of the main road, but that's where people live, and you accept that. But the main roads, I would argue, are much better. What else? Roads and potholes, yeah. I've had a good moan about those. Let me see if my laptop will play ball. It appears to be working. Oleg, hi. Are you going to make some videos from a fish and chip restaurant while you're in the UK? Oh dear. Hadn't thought about it, to be honest. I suppose it's what everybody assumes when they're thinking of the UK. Fish chips. So, will I get the chance to before I come back? Probably not. There are plenty of fish and chip shops in my hometown. It's not really a great deal to see, to be honest. You're behind a counter. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I don't need much of an excuse to go into a fish and chip shop, to be honest. So I'll see if I can divert tomorrow maybe into a fish and chip shop. Tonight I'm out into a local restaurant with my children, and we will be having a curry. So I won't be doing any filming tonight, definitely. But yeah, maybe, who knows? Maybe we'll divert into a fish and chip shop and do a bit. Greetings, sir. Do you have any specific plans for the future of the channel? Specific, no. I just want to show a different side of Russia to my Western audience, and I want to show the UK to my Russian audience. So hopefully can what am I trying to do? Am I trying to change the world? No. If I can change one person's attitude, in a right way, if their opinion has been incorrect about either the UK or Russia, and I can show them the other side that makes them think a bit more critically and outside of the box rather than just very tunnel vision. If I can do that, then great. That's the goal. That's what I want to do. I'm not trying to set the world alight. I'm not trying to get political. I've just learned through going to Russia that we're very, very controlled, and we're lied to on a level that I had no comprehension of. I really didn't until I went to Russia. And certainly being in Russia and sitting there and watching the news reports from Western mainstream media, and being there and knowing what they're actually saying is absolute garbage, is complete lies and fabrication, because we're there. That has made me do this channel, really. It's just, I just want to be able to show people, not military bases, not political stuff. I just want to be able to show people the beach, which most people go, beach in Russia? And this is the problem. This is the biggest problem, that people have no comprehension or understanding of Russia. And I was one of those people. And that's why I think I'm quite passionate about it now, because it has been a massive, massive eye-opener for me. And that's what I want to do with the channel. I just want to carry on doing that. I want to carry on filming in our area. Like I say, not political in any way, but just saying, hey, look, this is where we live. This is the beach. This is the vineyards. This is our house. Yada, yada. Let people make their own minds up. And equally, I have noticed with my Russian audience, and certainly with some Russians in Russia, that their opinion about the UK, and this really has surprised me, that their opinion of the UK is that they put it on some sort of pedestal, and they hold the UK in really high regard, and almost to a point of fairy tale, that it's some magical place that it'd be so wonderful to visit. And don't get me wrong, I love the UK. It's where I was born. It's a green and pleasant land, but it's got a lot of problems and it's got a lot of faults. But the Russians don't see that at all. And I've noticed that with some of my videos. I've done some videos around the town, and it just shows the rubbish everywhere, and it's filthy. And one of my videos, I think there's 5 or 6 homeless people in it. And the Russian comments have been, wow, what a wonderful town, what a lovely town, and and all of this, and it really surprises me that those people are probably the ones that have got a very bad opinion about Russia as well. And I've certainly encountered that a lot, when I've spoke to people and said that I come from the UK. It's like, oh wow, and they're so shocked that I like Russia more than the UK. Literally blown away. They can't, why? They don't get it. And that's what I want to show people if I can. It isn't all, rainbows and unicorns in the UK. I can assure you it's not. And there's a huge disparity between the salaries in the UK compared to Russia, and I absolutely understand that. But what the Russians tend to gloss over is the huge disparity in cost. And whilst you might see a wonderful salary and think, oh, you can afford to do this, this and this, the reality is the costs are absolutely insane. And the salaries do not, if you took a direct comparison, salary to cost from Russia to the UK, I promise you, and I'm living it so I know, I promise you, you're better off in Russia. Your money goes further in Russia, 100%. The UK, it's just cost for cost for cost, taxes. It really is. It's a very difficult place to live if you're not earning good money, or you've been very careful throughout your life, planned well for your retirement. If you haven't done that, then you're really going to struggle. And certainly the UK has a lot of homeless people. And that I haven't seen in Russia anywhere near to the extent I've seen one person maybe since I was there, whereas in the UK, every town, there are people sleeping in doorways. So there is a massive disparity between salary and cost if you compare the two countries. So I want to show that. I do want Russians to sort of open their eyes and realise that it's kind of the grass is always greener, I suppose. You don't really love your hometown because you've lived there all your life. You see the faults, so you you know, everywhere else is better, and I get that. But I do want Russians to understand that Russia isn't anywhere near as bad as probably they think it is. And I get that it was, and I get that it's still got a long way to go. But it certainly has caught up with the West in an awful lot of ways, and in a lot of ways, I'd say overtaken it. And they really, you know, it's important for me that they understand that. And it's also important that they understand that England isn't this fairy tale castle, that it has got its faults. And, you know, I'm not suggesting don't come to England or whatever, because it's, you know, there's parts of England that are lovely. But what tends to happen is people will come here on holiday and think that that's daily life. You know, they'll go to London 2 or 3 times, or they might spend a week in London and think that that's, you know, they go around the sites, they go to a few shops, do a couple of restaurants, do a boat trip down the Thames, they do all of the touristy stuff and think that that's normal everyday life. And it's just not. It's just not for most people. So, you know, it's important that if you want to make a comparison, that you do some research, and really that's what the channel's about. That's what I want to do. So I don't have any specific plans other than to just keep making videos, really. And if people like them, great. And if they don't, oh well. Hi Sailor, blimey, you're always here. Doesn't matter what time of day I'm on. Interesting. I'm planning to get sauna too. UK's not a sauna kind of thing. We just don't do it, you know. A few people might. But it's not a cultural thing like it is in Russia. Didn't get the sauna thing. Just can't see the point of sitting somewhere and getting hot. It's not my thing. Until I did it. And you're a bot. Busted. Until I did it, you know, and it isn't just about going in the room and getting hot and sweaty. It's more than that. It's about mixing with friends. It's about having some nice food and a drink. And just relaxing and you know, in and out of the sauna, and you know, into a pool if you can. It's good for you, and yeah, I get it now, and I'm looking forward to having a sauna. Looking forward to being able to do that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So you know, once we get back, we can start to get that underway, and hopefully we'll have that all up and running by the winter. That's the plan. I call this cone display. Okay. Don't know what you mean about that. So if you want to elaborate, please do. Otherwise, that's gone straight over my head. Who knows? Yeah, so... Miss Mouse. Sorry, Moose. Are there any heart-shaped strawberries available in UK site? Not that I've seen. No. Again, it's kind of like once you have your first proper steak, which is me going to Goodman's in London, everywhere else seems to be a little bit rubbish. So I don't order steak in a restaurant, whereas that was the thing that I always ordered when I went out. So I don't order that anymore, because once you've had real nice stuff, it's difficult to eat the cheap stuff. And it's not about the price. I'd rather go once every 6 months and spend 5 times as much on a steak than have one every month and not enjoy it. So I don't mind spending money if it's if it's value and I enjoy it. It's not about the actual cost. I'd rather do it once a year, and enjoy it, and it'd be a real nice thing to do than eat it every month and just be bland. So getting to your point about strawberries, I haven't seen any heart-shaped strawberries in the UK, and I can tell you that they are completely different in Russia. They're much more juicy, they're much more sweet. And yeah, the UK ones just seem to be a bit forced, and a bit probably full of preservatives, I guess. And maybe that's the difference. The ones in Russia, they don't last long, but they don't get a chance to last long, because we buy them and bloody well eat them. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting some of those, definitely. Yes, there is apparently a Goodman Steakhouse in Moscow, I was told. but that is about 2,500 kilometres away from where we live. So that really is commitment. It's a long, long way to go for a steak. Especially when we've got a couple of local butchers and I can buy my own to the size I want and cook them on the grill outside in the garden. Your story about road repair. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up with the chat. Causes cone display. Yeah. I mean, effectively, road repairs in the UK is creating more work. You've got people that manufacture cones, which is an ongoing business because they get stolen, they get squashed, yada yada. So it's a permanent, You've got people that store the cones and deliver the cones. You've got people that put the cones out. You've got people that collect the cones. It's quite a business, isn't it? And that, I think, is something that the UK is very good at, is creating new business through health and safety and new taxation classes. They're very good at creating new stuff and saying, oh, you need this now. So, yeah, cones, yeah, not many people in the UK like a cone. Drunken Sailor Irish Rovers. Okay, no idea. Cones all over the road, but no repair team. Very common, very common. Again, it just seems to me to be bad management by the council. If at the end of the day, a council is a business, it has a certain amount of revenue that it has to operate on. So to my mind, there really should be a much tighter controls on how the money is spent and penalties if things aren't done correctly or on time. And the impression I get is that probably nobody in the council really has an understanding of things like road repair, basic stuff, basic stuff that the everyday working man has an understanding of, that they just don't seem to have a clue about. And it just feels that, construction companies will say, oh, we need to do this, and they go, yeah, okay. And it's more about how much is the bill rather than the disruption. And time's money, and it's, in my mind, it's far better to get a crew of people on something for an intense amount of time and get it smashed out and done than it is to put less people on it and stretch it out for longer. So that's a bugbear, but that's, it's very easy to look from the outside. I might be completely wrong, but I'd love to have a go at managing council resources, because I think I'll do a better job than the current lot. I don't think I could do it worse, to be fair. Do you have expat gatherings in Russia where people will communicate, exchange ideas, have barbecues, drinks, etc.? Simple answer to that, mate, is no. I am in a Telegram group, or a couple of Telegram groups. One is Brits Abroad, which is it's an invite-only group, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. There's half of us that are YouTubers and the other half that are just normal guys living their life. And there's a bit of chat there, but not too much. And another group for English-speaking YouTubers. Again, a bit of chat, not too much. The biggest problem you have is the size of Russia. Even if we were all in the same region, we could be 300 kilometres apart quite easily. The place is immense. So I've just literally started following a guy I subscribed to yesterday who's in one of our chats, and he is about 15 kilometres from the Chinese border. So he is completely the opposite side to me. I'm 100 kilometres from the Kerch Bridge. So we are poles apart. So the likelihood of us ever meeting up, pretty unlikely. I don't spend a great deal of time on chat groups. I don't really have that time. I'm spending a fair amount of time with YouTube and videos at the moment, much to the frustration of my friends and family, especially my poor suffering wife. Honey, I'm sorry. is what it is. You married an idiot, this is what you get. So there isn't really I haven't taken the opportunity really to search other UK groups or English speaking groups. So yeah, probably the simple answer to that, mate, is no. Next, let's have a look. Do you know how many Japanese grandpa they use for R Block road working area? Somebody will explain that to me, I'm sure. Sorry, Plastic Russian, but while Siberia was on at the same time, his live cast is also interesting like yours. Yeah, Dan. Yeah, I did actually message him to say let's get a live in whilst I'm in the UK and he's in Siberia. That could have been a cool video, I think, a cool live stream, giving a literal live update on things in the UK, questions that he's going to get and that he's going to have himself that I could answer, which I thought would be good, but it hasn't come to pass. And also I've tried to arrange a couple of live streams with Sam from Sam's Russian Adventures, and also with Travels with Russell. Russell's travelling around with Russell. Travelling around Russia with Russell. Russell's Russian Travels. It's one of those. I did say I was going to write it on my forehead or put a sticker on the computer next time so I don't forget it. There you go. And again, it hasn't happened. It hasn't materialised. We've all got different lives with different things going on. So yeah, it's a shame because I really love doing live streams. I like the chat. I like having a little bit of a format to talk about. And if there's somebody else there as well to bounce off, I think it's great. And I love to be able to answer people's questions, and feel free to ask me anything. If I don't want to answer it, I'll just say I'm not telling you, so don't worry. If the only thing I won't tolerate really is people starting talking rubbish about the current military situation. Not interested. If you want to talk about that, go somewhere else. YouTube does a pretty good job of censoring a lot of that. I might not catch it straight away. I'll catch it later and just block you from the channel. So, I've got no time for that. It's just nonsense. It's not the time or the place. Right. Sorry. Back. So Dan's live now, is he? Okay. What's your favourite brand of beer or other drink in the UK? Theoretically, if I was drinking, which I'm not, but if I was to have a drink, which I don't, but if I did, which I don't, maybe Guinness, or maybe a cold, something like a cold San Miguel, what we'd call a Spanish beer, a Brit on holiday kind of lager, but it has to be cold, has to be out of the fridge. I can't abide warm beer of any description. I cannot drink out of a can. I just, no, just will not do it. I drink when I have a drink because I just fancy having a drink at that time. I'm not somebody that needs a drink. Sometimes I just think, do you know what, I want a drink, so I'll have one. But it's not it doesn't control my mind. I like making a White Russian. Just don't know why. Just something that I discovered a few years ago, which is Kahlua, vodka and cream. It's a bit of a Nancy drink, I guess, but it tastes quite nice. I did have a lovely bourbon whilst we were up in London. And that used to probably be, if I was going to have a drink. When I was working, I definitely drank a lot more. It was the work culture, in management team. It was always, let's have a meeting down the pub. Let's go and talk about quarter year performance or half year performance at a restaurant. It was that kind of culture. And also the stress of the job. You just come home and pour a drink to just sort of, in your own mind, relax. So that was the culture. So yeah, that was my thing, probably bourbon, because in an earlier life I used to drink whiskey and then gave up drinking for years, and I just find bourbon is just much smoother. It's more sweeter and nicer. So yeah, did have a nice bourbon up in London, but yeah, equally now in Russia we're in a wine region, and the wine is so nice that I'm more than happy to have a glass of wine, where I won't in the UK because I just find it like battery acid. It's just really sharp, and I just don't like it. So yeah, wine and champagne when we're back home. Right. So, travelling with Russell. Travelling with Russell. How difficult is it? Travelling with Russell. Oh my God. He's going to absolutely disown me, I swear to God. Travelling with Russell. So yeah, I wanted to do a live with Russell. I've done one. But his channel and my channel are completely different. I like this kind of format, whereas he will talk about a topic and stay on that topic. So maybe it's just the two don't mix too well. I'm happy to talk. So yeah. Sailing and drinking is not a good combo. Really? Sailors? I think if you went on one of these game shows and the question was, what armed services are known for drinking? I understand they like a rum. So I can't go along with that one, I'm afraid. Sailing and drinking is not a good combo. I disagree. You also have to remember when you're sailing, there's no roads, there's no curbs. So you haven't got to go in a straight line. So you haven't really got to worry too much. Fine. Greetings from Japan. Oh my God. Okay. Ray, wasabi from Japan. Jeez, you must be bored. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Very diverse, this group sometimes. Miss Mouse. Nope. Daniel's live is just over a few minutes ago. Ah, okay. Dan's, yeah. Okay, fine. So I'm getting a fallout now, yeah? Are there certain standards in UK re number of rubbish bins in the public areas? No. At least one dustbin for a certain number of square? No. Or certain number of visitors per? No. No, I think it's purely a case of let's stick some rubbish bins out. The rubbish bins, they're still around. It's not like there aren't any, but the number has been reduced from what it used to be years ago. They used to be a very common down every road. But over the years, as the society starts to sort of decline, you know, I can remember rubbish bins being set on fire. I can remember post boxes being set on fire. You know, kids just, because they've got nothing else to do. And if you don't have places for kids to go, they turn to mischief. And that also comes from home. And if the parents aren't doing what they should be doing as regards being a parent, if their kids are out at all hours roaming the streets, they're going to be up to mischief. It's just how it happens. You know, so when families break up, you know, when mums and dads split up, has a knock-on effect on the kids. And yeah, you know, that has a knock-on effect on society. And our rubbish bins have certainly been reduced, all in the name of cost, allegedly. But again, I like the Russian idea, where the town is zoned and the people that are responsible for each zone are responsible purely for that zone. So if that zone is untidy, you know who to go to. You know, 2 or 3 people that are responsible for that zone. If it's untidy, they're not doing their job. So it's very easy to maintain it, and it's very easy to ensure that the work is carried out to a good standard. If you've just got bins thrown everywhere, or in certain locations, and you've just got a team of people going around emptying them all, oh, I missed one, I did empty it, but somebody must have filled it the next day. You've got all of this potential excuse. Whereas if you make somebody responsible for X amount of roads, X amount of area, and they just go around that area, you're going to have a much better standard, and it's going to be much cleaner. It's just down to resource. There's not enough resource devoted to it, and when you've got a seaside town that relies on tourism, it's shameful. And if you're unsure what I mean, go and watch my channel. There's a video on there. I think it's a walk around Eastbourne, or a walk around my hometown, and just look at the state of the streets. That's the high street. It's the main road. The road is broken to bits. The pavement is in a terrible state of repair. There's rubbish everywhere. People are sitting down having cups of coffee with rubbish around their feet. And this is a seaside resort. It's just not good enough. The town relies on tourism, allegedly. Well, as I said in a previous live, English people don't moan and complain. They're not going to run up to the council and say, oh, it's terrible. They just won't come back. And you'll have hotels shutting, and it just has a massive knock-on effect. Just a bit of rubbish has a massive, massive knock-on effect. And I know this from being in the automotive industry. It was really, really important to make sure that the site was always clean, because it has a knock-on effect. It's a knock-on effect on people's attitude, let alone when you've got a seaside resort. If the main high street is full of rubbish, it's setting the tone. So it is my bugbear. But no, there isn't any sort of management that I'm aware of. There isn't any certain square footage or anything like that. It just, that's a historic site of where a rubbish bin has been, so that's where it is. Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? One rubbish bin for a certain. I mean, how you do that calculation, don't know. Think about it really. If you try to allocate one rubbish bin to a certain amount of inhabitants, then if they're elderly and don't go out, they're not going to need a rubbish bin. If they're young, there'd be too many variables. So I wouldn't have thought that would be a viable idea. I mean, the simple answer is that in all public spaces there should be adequate bins, and they should have teams of people making sure that they're empty, and they should also have people sweeping the roads up. And whilst we do have that here, it's absolutely a skeleton. It's minimum, bare minimum. And consequently, we've got what we've got. And as I said, it's a seaside town and it's not good enough. I can't add a link for video. In Japan, it's usual to use a lot of workers with light sticks for prevent incidents during any roadworks. Yeah, every country I think has a different approach to roadworks. Russia certainly does, and I like the Russian approach, which is common sense. But I will say that the roadworks that I've seen in Russia have been on the main roads, and those roads are a lot wider than our roads. So they can do stuff and still keep the road open quite easily. It's not often that I'll have roadworks with traffic lights, because the road's wide enough that they will just, put a truck in the way so you're not going to run over anybody. And they'll put a few cones out, and drivers will use their noggin. They'll use common sense and drive around it, and that keeps the road open, no disruption. And I prefer that. And all of this health and safety gone mad, as I said, going over that story earlier about the footpath in Bexhill, closing the main artery so that they could make a footpath into the road because they're digging up the footpath. It's just, I'm sorry, it's just insane. It's absolutely insane. You're inconveniencing thousands of people for days to not inconvenience, a handful of people that would use that piece of footpath? One disabled person who's in a mobility scooter. And don't forget, it's not like they're completely blocked and they can't get past. They just cross the road, use the footpath the other side, and then come back again. So it's just insanity, and whoever thinks that that's a good idea and whoever signs off on that really needs to give their head a wobble, because it's absolutely ludicrous. And the cost to the country in delays of movement of goods and transport must be insane for a repair on a footpath. Oh, it makes me mad. Add a splash of Kahlua or Tia Maria to that White Russian. Yeah, that's exactly what a White Russian is for us. It's Kahlua, vodka, ice, and cream. So I bought a bottle of Kahlua, bought a bottle of vodka, Was going to take the Kahlua back to Russia because I can't find it in the shops, and then decided, you know what, I'd rather drink the wine. So, good old times, yeah. I was in the Navy, Puss's rum. Puss's Navy rum. I've sampled the delights of Puss's Navy rum. Very nice with a bit of Coke. But that stuff will put hairs on your eyeballs, that stuff. It's proper, good gear. Sure you could run candles on it. Simple reason for not drinking while sailing. There are way too many moving parts while sailing. If you're dunking, you might see more. Very confusing. I mean, to me, not drinking and sailing is equivalent, really, to not drinking and driving. You know, you're in control of a machine, blah, blah, blah. But the worst thing about all of that is you might spill it. Can you imagine? You've got a nice glass in your hand, bump in the road or a big wave, and you're going to spill it. No, it's not a good idea. If you're drunk, start wipers. Yeah. On naval destroyers, the beer machine was available for certain hours. Tots, yeah. Well, that was rum, wasn't it? Rum was for sailors. It was they were given a daily allowance of rum, I believe. Yeah. Maybe I should have a daily allowance. What do you reckon, wife? No. Yeah, like I say, you know, in a different life, I drank probably an awful lot more than I do now. I'm not a drinker, you know. I'll have a drink, but equally, when we go back, I probably won't drink anything for a while because I've had a few drinks while I've been here. So I don't need it. I don't miss it. I'd rather have a nice cold juice or something over a load of ice. I've skipped over your question about vineyards. Did I? Did I indeed? Well, that could be a fault of my laptop, I'm afraid, because it's kind of like me, old and slow. So, no, ask me again, mate. Would I consider buying a vineyard? No. That's a tough game, from what I understand. I think to make it work and be profitable, you'd need a lot, and obviously the big vineyards make a lot of money, but I don't want the headache. I've managed staff a large percentage of my career, and somebody once told me that the hardest part about any business is the staff, and it is challenging, you know, when you've got lots and lots of different personalities and you've got to manage that, and I just don't want a headache, you know. I would consider opening a clay pigeon shoot. That's what I would like to do. That's a kind of a pipe dream of mine in Russia, to start a clay pigeon shoot, because there isn't one that I'm aware of anywhere in our area. And yeah, that's something that I'm quite passionate about. I really enjoy it. So that's something that I would consider doing. That's a pipe dream when my numbers come in, which will be never because I don't do the lottery. But I have got fingers in other pies, so you never know. But yeah, no, a vineyard, no. For the sake of £2 or £3 for a bottle of wine, I'd rather go and buy it. How is the wholesale purchase of Marmite for future transportation to Russia? So, the future transportation to Russia of Marmite involves being packed into 2 shoes inside my suitcase, which is already done, taken care of. There are 2 brand new jars of Marmite loaded, ready for dispatch. And if I can sneak a 3rd one in, I will. Because that is the only thing that I have missed coming back to the UK. I went through all of the other stuff, you know, having a Chinese takeaway, having an Indian, blah, 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 blah. and I can take it or leave it. It certainly wasn't as good as I remembered when I lived here. You know, you just live on this sort of stuff. You know, takeaway is a regular occurrence for most British households, especially if you're out at work. And yeah, I haven't missed it anywhere near as much as I thought I would, and certainly some of it I've come back and gone, ugh. Kebabs especially, the ones we have in Russia are just a lot nicer. So yeah, but Marmite I've missed. I thought I would probably taste it and go, ugh, I don't like it, but I tasted it and went, oh yeah. So I will be taking Marmite back with me. Sad, I know. I'm also taking a box of Maltesers back if I get them through customs. And then travels with Russell will have to make a journey to come and collect it because I'm not going to post them. I might actually do a live where I'll sit there and eat one every 10 minutes. Just tease him. But no, that's the other thing. I'm going to smuggle some Maltesers back for Russell. Yeah. What's the kind of sports you're mostly interested in? So, as we say in the UK, you're either into balls or engines. So ball sports, tennis, football, rugby, squash, blah, blah, blah. Or engines, so motorsport. For me, it's engines. It's always been engines since I was a kid. You know, I was riding a motorbike at the age of 8, I guess. So I've always been into any kind of motorsport, really. Formula One I find uninteresting. It's a little bit too money controlled, but then to be honest, after being involved in motorsport, it is always money. Even at club level, it's about who has the biggest budget, really, a lot of the time. But yeah, for me, motorsport and clay pigeon shooting I was heavily into for a few years, which as a sport I think is sort of making a little bit of a resurgence in the UK, but the heydays of clay pigeon shooting has gone. There used to be good money in competitions in clay pigeon shooting, you know, winning cars and all sorts, but those days are gone. And that's what happened when the tobacco advertising came out of it. Embassy used to sponsor the World Championships and the British Championships and the English Open, etc., etc. And there was big prize money, there was cars given away. But then when you ban tobacco advertising, then the money comes out of stuff. And if it's not replaced, then the sport dwindles, and that's what's happened. So now it's a very niche sport, I think, in the UK. That and obviously the gun laws. What is the atmosphere now that elections are being called in the UK? I haven't got a clue. Can't say that I've heard anyone talk about it. I think everybody... No, that's not fair. I can't speak for everyone. I think most people understand, as George Galloway said, and I've quoted him before, the two parties we have are two cheeks of the same arse. The policies are going to be exactly the same. You know, the wording might be slightly different on one party to another, but you've got two parties. The reason this election has been called as a snap, what we call a snap election, so really quickly, I believe, is not to give any other parties a chance to get organised. So our democracy revolves around us only having really two viable parties, and those parties deciding who is going to be heading up their party and who we're going to vote for. Our voting system, I think, is rubbish. It's not fair representation. So yeah, you end up with what you end up with, and we have two parties that are heavily connected with the World Economic Forum, and in my view, Keir Starmer will be a more staunch supporter of the World Economic Forum than even Sunak. And realistically, They're two peas out the same pod, just with a different mouth. So, unfortunately, UK politics needs a massive, massive shake-up, and it's going to take years. You know, you're going to get Starmer as your next Prime Minister. That's a given. I think it's a waste of time pretending anything else. And voting really is the illusion to give you, to make you think that you have choice, and you don't. It's already decided. Starmer will be the Prime Minister. It's not going to go any other way that I can see. And it's just going to be the same policies. Just more shouting and screaming and banging of the drum. How does that help anything? It's going to be years before it can have a shake-up, but it needs a shake-up. It needs the British people to wake up. It really does. You know, we're a nation of sheep. We really are. It's a shame. You know, it's all about what's the latest thing to wave a flag at, and that's been definitely obvious to me. I've actually I did a video of a little town near us, which I'm not going to upload because it just goes the political route, but a year ago that town was absolutely full of flags. Literally every household. You know, it looked like some sort of jamboree. You know, it was insane. And I drove through it last week, and there was one flag propped up in a doorway that looked like it had had a bad life. One. And if I say there were 200 flags down this high street, that's not an exaggeration. So we tend to wave the flag and, you know, change the flag in our bio on our social media. We support, until the next thing comes along, or we're sick of hearing about it. And really, the British people need to wake up and realise that it's just all manipulation. And we need to be doing a lot more research. The tools are there, the internet's there now. People need to do some research instead of being force-fed news through that little box in the corner of the room. In my view. It's only my opinion. Any Russian food, drinks that you've learned about only after moving to Russia and that you miss now while in the UK? So there's a lot of Russian food that I was unaware of. Not as much probably as some, because obviously my wife's Russian, so you know, the standard, I forget what it's called, but the herring in a fur coat, which is the thing that once you start talking about Russian food and you understand a little bit, that will come up. I'm not a fan. It's too fishy. But my wife makes a nice version, which I don't mind as a side dish, if you like. But people will eat plate loads of it. It's a different taste, I think. A different, you know, when you move different countries, they've got different tastes. It's what they're brought up with. And from what I can see, Russia is a lot of fish. You know, their beer snacks, for example. What do we eat in the UK? If you're sat at home watching the football or boxing, you're going to have a beer. You might have a spirit of some description. And then you'll have some peanuts or some crisps. That's pretty much our snacks, isn't it, really? There's a bit more to it, but that's pretty much it. Russia seem to do beer snacks to an infinite level. There's all different types of cracker and dried bread, different flavours. They seem to love lobster flavoured everything. But the weird thing that I cannot wrap my head around is dried fish, little weeny dried fish in packets. Heads, arses, the whole lot, just dried. Yuck. I am not putting that in my mouth. But that's really popular. A lot of people, you know, you go into a supermarket and there's racks of the stuff, all different. The thought of eating a dried fish, nah, not me, sorry. So I don't miss any of that. So no, there isn't anything specific that I miss food-wise, other than just generally the quality of the food. In Russia, the quality is a lot better. It's a lot fresher. You know, do the tomatoes look as pristine and lovely as the ones in our supermarket in the UK? No. But they're fresh and they're not full of preservatives, and they taste a lot nicer. So, yeah, I think we've been programmed to buy food on how it looks. So, consequently, that's a very easy way to manipulate people. You just present it in a nice way and people go, oh, that looks nice. And that's what we do. When do you ever go shopping and say, oh, that tastes nice? You don't. You go, oh, that looks nice, I fancy that. So we're programmed to buy stuff on sight, you know, buy food on how it looks. And I've learned, when I first went to the market with my wife in Russia, I was looking at the produce going, ugh, don't fancy any of that. You know, weird shaped carrots and all sorts, you know, tomatoes that didn't look particularly great, sort of marks in the skin, and, you know, potatoes that looked a bit funny, and, you know, not supermarket pristine. But I fairly quickly learnt that that's real food, and what we get in the supermarkets over here is just produced food, and it's completely different. Completely different. I had a thing about big beef tomatoes, big Spanish beef tomatoes, because I don't like English tomatoes. They're just very sour, I find. So I'd only eat big beef tomatoes until I went to Russia, and I've discovered that all the tomatoes out there taste nice. So, and that's just one example. So no, food wise, I'm just looking forward to the freshness. I'm looking forward to the, you know, the real nice produce and nice quality taste food, and getting back to having the occasional shawarma, which, if you don't know, is it's a Russian version of a kebab. It's a wrap rather than a piece of pita bread, and, you know, pork skewers or chicken skewers or whatever loaded into it, with your obligatory salad. And yeah, I miss that. They're lovely. And sushi, I've got to say, big in Russia, certainly big in our region. It's, as I always say, my thoughts are my own and based on what I see. But certainly in our region, lots and lots of sushi. But I am a wuss when it comes to sushi. I usually have chicken sushi. It's cheating, isn't it? I know it is. Oh well. Do people read a lot in the UK nowadays? My experience, I would say no. The older generation still does. They were brought up that way. Younger generation, no. It's all internet, you know, it's all phone. Anything that comes on the phone, pretty much, you'll see everybody wandering around with a phone stuck to their nose. I'm guilty of that. I think everybody is, really. If you've got a smartphone, you tend to spend too much time in it, let's face it. Nobody really reads books or magazines anymore. Newspapers, yeah, it's all political. It's all completely political. You still have them, and people still buy them, but, you know, I'm turned off on the mainstream media. I've just discovered that most of it is a complete pack of lies and fabrication. So I can't see the point in reading something if it's just a load of lies. What's the point? It just doesn't make any sense. Why bother reading it? Why bother wasting your time reading this mainstream media garbage that is just government propaganda? What's the point? Just go out, do your own research, look up stuff. You know, hear about something and go and research it from all sides. Get all points of view, not just one. And that's what you're going to get by reading a newspaper. Really, you're just going to get one point of view, and it's going to be heavily edited and corrected. So, yeah. But no, newspapers are definitely declining in their readership, but, you know, they're always going to be around, I guess, because it's a source of control. We hope to sell our land in Canada, sell the house in Peru, and sell the apartment in Novosibirsk. We plan on building a house ourselves. Blimey, Linda, you're a baller, aren't you? Land agent. Yeah, where do you plan building? It's interesting. You probably answered that further down the chat, but that's how far behind I am. Yeah, obviously building a house in Russia is cheaper than buying one, and the beauty of building a house is you build it exactly how you want. If you go to my channel and see our house, it's not to everyone's taste, but we didn't build it for everyone. We built it for us. So it's what we want, and we love it. So yeah, definitely that's the way to go. Build your house if you get that option. You'll save some money, and like I say, you'll get something that's bespoke to you. You'll get a lot of headache, you know. We've had many evenings where we've been looking at plans and altering stuff, and many, I'm going to call them bickering sessions rather than arguments, but, you know, that's normal. When you're planning something, you're not always going to see eye to eye on where a socket should be, for example, or a sauna that I didn't want, but we're going to have now. And she was right, and I don't want to tell her she was right. Okay, wife, you were right. We do need a sauna. Greetings from Murmansk. Murmansk. Oh, my geography is absolutely rubbish. Sorry, Nelly. It sounds like a long way away, I guess. Murmansk. Mind you, in Russia, everything's a long bloody way away. You know, the only thing that's not a long way away are the shops. Fire Flux, hello. And Russia, 100%, that's right. Rishi is not popular anymore. Global. Yeah, I think people with brains know that both parties are exactly the same. The voting is all about giving you the illusion of choice, but as I think it was George Carling said, you have no choice. It's one big club and you ain't in it. When the average British taxpayer pays his taxes, does he know how many % go to London and how stay in his hometown village? No. The average British taxpayer has no understanding of what tax is about, other than the fact that it is taken out of their salary before they see their salary. So you'll get your paycheck, and it will show deductions in one side, and it will be national insurance and tax, and you'll go, oh bloody hell, they've taken that amount of tax, and that'll be as much interest as the average person takes, because it's gone. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't not pay your tax. You don't have a choice in that. So the theft is done at source. I'll call it theft. And then you are told that it is spent in many good ways, which of course it isn't. And you have no say on how it's spent. So for the average person, what's there to know? The money's taken from you that you've worked hard for. And it's spent on things that you have no control over. So should be abolished. Canada has the same issues. Yeah, the government has forgotten about its peoples. Yeah, I mean, Canada is, dear, from what I've seen of Canada. But, you know, I don't want to go down a political route, but you need to look at Canada's role in the world since World War II, and specific populations and specific ideologies. You know, just go back a few months and look at the Canadian Parliament fiasco. But that's prevalent, and that's deep rooted. And yeah, I won't comment any more on that on here. But Canada has deep-rooted issues, like a lot of Western countries, and people have just no idea, have no clue. I didn't have any clue. I really didn't have any clue that these horrible, disgusting, vile creatures still existed. I thought they were all wiped out and gone. I'm not completely naive, you know, I understand that there are idiots that support that kind of ideology. But to the extent that it is, I had no clue. I really had no clue. And most people in the West have no clue because it's all hidden, it's all smoke and mirrors. When you start digging and see what's really happening and what's going on, it's scary. And yeah, there was one nation that defeated it last time, and there's going to be one nation that defeats it again. Herring is too fishy. We could have thought, yeah, we could have thought it. No, you're right. But I've had it made with other fish as well, and it's still, yeah, don't like it. Not for me. I like fish, but certain fish, you know, I like a nice piece of salmon if it's seasoned nicely. I love sea bass, but again, it has to be cooked nice. Monkfish cheeks, the bits here on the monkfish, lovely. Oh, yum yum, really nice. So I like a meaty kind of fish, really. Obviously cod, but again, only if it's a good bit, not cheap and horrible, but a nice bit of cod, don't mind. But I'm not hugely into fish, which is surprising because my dad had fishing boats and he used to bring it home. One of my earliest memories is my dad bringing home a flatfish of some description, putting in the bowl, turning the water on and the thing flapping about in the bowl after he'd called it out at sea. It's one of my earliest memories. So I was brought up around it. My dad ate anything that came out the sea. Cockles, whelks, oh, you name it. If it came out the sea, my dad ate it. Roll mops was a thing that he used to like as well in his later years, which is pickled mackerel. Ugh. You've got to be hardcore to start eating that stuff, but not for me. I agree, working for an English company, health and safety is well organised, unlike Japanese. Yeah, but it's an industry here, and it really is about generating revenue. That's what the health and safety industry is in the UK. You know, again, we are protecting one idiot at the inconvenience of 10,000 sensible people. I much prefer the Darwin theory, because if you get rid of that idiot out of the food chain, then they tend not to breed more idiots. I know it seems harsh, but vote for Chris. Have you ever been to the US? No, I haven't. All of my friends have, not all of them, but most of my friends have been to the US. I wanted to go to the US in my younger years, really, really wanted to go. Came close a few times, wanted to go to Florida, wanted to go to Las Vegas. My friends were going there, having a wonderful time, fantastic. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier in this stream about going to London for a week or 2 weeks, seeing all the sights, wonderful. But that's not the reality of the place, and from what I understand, that's the same in the US. You know, the touristy bits are great, but you know, a friend of mine has gone every year for years on holiday to the US and has recently come back from Chicago and said he'll never go again. Said where it was a few years ago that people were very polite and helpful, he didn't find that at all anymore. He said the prices were absolutely insane, and he didn't really want to leave the hotel. He said it felt very unsafe, and that's, you know, a complete stark contrast to Russia. Russia feels incredibly safe, really does. I feel far more safer in Russia than I do in my own country. How sad is that? You know, but again, that's down to the culture, that's down to the attitude of the people. And Russians aren't wired the same as us Westerners. They're just not. I've said it many times, and it's very humbling. It really is. They just don't look at things the way we do, and they don't treat people like that. You know, just because the British government might be insane with their ideas and views. You know, Russians, you know, because I come from England, I just assume that they're going to hate me, you know, and with good reason, let's face it. But they don't. And that's very humbling, really is. Is there anything in Russian mentality or culture that you don't understand? That's a good question. Russian mentality or culture? I won't say I don't understand. It takes a little bit of getting used to. Is they don't care about rubbish, and I don't mean rubbish as in rubbish bins. I mean nonsense, just little stuff. So in the UK, we get wound up over the slightest thing. That's why there's a load of road rage in the UK. That's why every day you'll see road rage, because somebody will be bimming on at somebody else or shouting out the window or something, because we're absolutely obsessed with our little piece of territory in front of the car, and you know somebody's took that space, and just absolute nonsense. And Russians couldn't care less, from what I've seen. That, you know, I mean, this is a country that's gone through proper hardship, so parking isn't something that they seem to care about at all. So parking is interesting at times. You see all sorts, but they just don't care about rubbish. You know, about the stupid stuff. You know, literally, they'll just look at it and go, "Why are you even bothered about that? You know, how is that even featured in your brain to think about?" You know, whereas as an English person, I'm used to being bothered about the little nonsense. So you say, "Oh, what about this and what about that?" So that took a little while to wrap my head around. You know, like workmen, they'll come onto our estate. Our estate's nearly finished now, but we've been living there while it's been built, and they'll park on your drive. Now in the UK, well, I dread to think how far it will go sometimes. You know, but out there that's completely normal, and you know the homeowner, if they need to come out, they'll. If they don't need to go out, they don't care. Whereas in the UK, that would just be, it doesn't matter if I'm going out, you're across my drive, move. Whereas in Russia, well, I don't need to go out, so what harm's he doing? Now that took a while to get used to. So yeah, they're a lot more, I won't say forgiving, because that's almost like they're consciously thinking, oh, I need to understand this and forgive it. They just don't factor that kind of rubbish in. You know, they've obviously lived a life where things like that just aren't important. So that's probably the most difficult thing to get my head around. And also, I've got to say, the acceptance of Russian people for foreigners. That's been the hardest thing. That really has. That's been the hardest thing and the most humbling thing. Like I say, you know, I thought I'm going to have to be very careful about what I say and where I go. It's not been the case. It really hasn't. People have been lovely, you know. Some people will look at you with a sort of a curious look, you know, who are you, what are you doing here, kind of thing. Why would an Englishman be here? That's, you know, that. But 99% of the time, the people are just lovely. They're just very helpful, very friendly. Yeah, so that's been the hardest thing, I would say. Black Sea area. Okay, Linda. Yeah, well, it's our neck of the woods, but it's a big coastline. So yeah, your dogs present a problem. Yeah, yeah. Pets are a bind. Yeah, need a little bit of land. Well, the thing in Russia is, I think certainly in our region, it's if you're buying land, it's a minimum of 600 meters now, 600 square meters. So I think you're always going to get some land anyway. You know, our back garden would be more than adequate for a couple of doggies. More than adequate. You know, it's oh dear. I'm trying to think how big our garden is in comparison to my garden in the UK. 6 times bigger, probably. You know, in the UK, our houses are Lego with postage stamp gardens. Our friends David and Ella, they've got a nice sized garden, but in comparison to Russia, but then the country's huge. So they've got a lot more land, which is, it's just nice. So, you know, anything out there, you're going to get more land. It's more about where you get it, for, you know, for your money. Murmansk region is next to Finland. Jeez. So you've got snow on your head. And what was it about Finland? Oh, cheese, wasn't it? There's something that's happened about cheese. I was reading. There was it the Russians used to go to Finland to get cheese, and then that had to stop, or was it the other way around? We couldn't import the cheese. I think there was a Finnish cheese that used to get imported, and then it stopped. But apparently, it started again recently. I've seen something like that. Probably talking complete rubbish, and it was popcorn, but bear with. It all goes to the government, and the government distributes as little as possible to local councils. Absolutely, Chad. It's funneled away, and the government spend less and less, because obviously that eats into their donors' profits. And of course, that's not true. You know, the taxes are all distributed for the people. Yeah, right. Yeah, on public services provided by private sector and shareholders. Funny that. We're going to shits in Canada. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's not just Canada, is it? I mean, this policy that the Western governments are pursuing at the moment is just absolutely suicidal, all in the name of appeasing America, because nobody has got the guts to turn around and say, hang on a minute, no, we're not doing this. So everybody's following America, and they're all disappearing down the wormhole. And I said this 2.5 years ago. I said that America's path is jumping into the lifeboat and charging headlong down this vortex, thinking that they're dragging Russia in it, and then they're turning around and seeing Russia going, no thanks, we're not going down there. And they're too late, they're going in and they're pulling everybody in with them. It's just insanity, this current path. And everybody says it, it's not, you know, I'm not saying anything new here. Everybody says that the current administrations of Western governments are just warmongering lunatics, with no understanding of war or what it means. Literally no understanding. It just seemed to be a bunch of brain dead morons. I can Chad Garlic Mouse. Yeah, I mean, Chad, shall I let you answer that if you haven't already? So Chad Garlic Mouse, as I understand, is a play on words for Brad Garlinghouse. Yeah, Garlinghouse. Brad Garlinghouse is Chad Garlic Mouse, but not one and the same. Just a play on words. And if you don't know who Brad Garlinghouse is, type it into Google. That's an eye opener. And then do a bit of research from that. How do you find the quality and taste of tea that is sold in Russia if compared to what is sold in the UK? So there's so many different teas in Russia. It's difficult to make a comparison. As a Brit, we tend to like what I would call builder's tea, strong flavoured tea, but not everybody. Fruit teas and that kind of thing aren't as big in the UK as they are in Russia. Tea for people in the UK is with milk and sugar, whereas in Russia most people drink tea without milk. So they're just different. It's different culture. It's just different. But I've found I can't remember what it is, but we've found a brand that's quite nice. Yeah. But I like coffee as well, so I drink coffee. We've got fresh ground coffee machine, so I'm quite happy to drink tea or coffee, as long as my dad would say, as long as it's wet and warm, son, good enough. Russians are very practical and straightforward. I appreciate that in them. Absolutely, they are. Yeah, absolutely they are. We're a lazy nation in the West, especially in the UK, and we've been taught to just go and buy something. The Russians will make it, or they'll modify it, or they'll fix it. The world's best recyclers, I call them. You are pretty close to Crimea, aren't you? Yep. Afraid of someone wanting traffic overhead, if you know what I mean. No, not at all, sailor. Not afraid of that at all. The chances of me catching a pointy thing on the top of my bonce is probably as likely as me getting struck by lightning. So don't believe the hype, don't believe the press, don't believe the news. How can I put it without putting it? Let's just say that I have seen with my own eyes lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of pointy things that fly in the air that stop other pointy things. So I'm not worried at all. No, I'm 60 miles from the Kerch Bridge, and I am absolutely not worried at all. Yeah, despite the terrorist activities of a certain regime. How are you doing learning the Russian language? Myself, I'm having a bit of a hard time, really. Learning at my age is not easy as it is you. No, kids pick it up, don't they, Linda? How am I doing learning the Russian language? Oh, God. It's not easy. And the trouble is, because it isn't easy, you tend to try and, I don't deliberately stay away from it, but I'm not excited about trying to learn it because it is too challenging for me, my tiny little brain at times. I've got to make more of an effort, is the simple answer, but it is so challenging, I find it quite demoralising. And my wife speaks obviously very good Russian and very correct Russian. So she's a terrible teacher, terrible, and constantly corrects me. She's not so bad now, but she used to, and that's difficult when you're trying to say a word and you think you're saying it, and she doesn't even understand what you're saying. It's like, oh my God. The word that I will now butcher. Sorry, Russians, I will now butcher it. Здравствуйте. So that's hi, hello. Our mouths in the West don't do that. Our tongues don't do that. And I just couldn't say that word. And I still can't, as I've just demonstrated. But, I mean, it was really not good. And that's what I've struggled with. Whereas, my wife, because she speaks very eloquently, from what I can tell, she has no problem with that. So she can enunciate it absolutely perfectly. And I can't. So, yeah. Yeah. Hi, Stacey. How you doing? You're absolutely correct. Yeah, I like Earl Grey. Yeah, I'm not on the Earl Grey hype train, I'm afraid. I am a Yorkshire tea man. Yorkshire fucking tea. USA is lazy too. Yeah, I think. Look, we're watching the death by 1,000 cuts of the Western society, aren't we? It's not a overnight process. It's been going on for years and years and years, and it will continue to happen until people have enough and deal with it. Because all the time that these absolute thieves, murderers, and morons are allowed to be in power and do what they do, it's not going to change. So until the people get together and realise and actually deal with it, it won't change, and it's just going to continue just getting worse and worse. I love your live casts. You are doing an awesome job. Thank you. I know it's not easy, but many thanks to you and your wife for the insight. Thank you, Linda. Very nice words. Very kind of you. I'm just me. I'm not trying to do a job. I'm just coming on and answering questions. But yeah, thank you. I looked at the Russian alphabet and compared to English, and it's complicated. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've got symbols for stuff for a start. What's all that about? And there's a couple of letters that aren't letters. They're just hardening and softening of the previous or the post letter. And then for some reason, the letters that actually are normal, that you can look at and go, oh, I know what that is, they decide that no. Just because you think that that's a P, it's not. And just because you think that's a C, it's not. So really, I think they're just having a laugh. I think they've just decided, it's a bit like going in the supermarket and buying 100 cans of food and then pulling all the labels off. I think that's what the Russians have done to us with this language. Yeah, you have to practice every day. My husband is finally advanced in Russian, and it's because he uses and practices it for a few hours a day. A few hours a day. Oh my God. Yeah. My Zdravstvuyte was really good. Yeah, but see, this is what confuses me, because I think it's just one word. Like in England, hi, one word. Oh no, I'm not going to butcher it, but I'm sure you know that there isn't just that word, and there's masculine and feminine versions, and I don't want masculine and feminine. I just want one word. I'm from England. We're stupid. Our language is really, really basic, and I just want in fact, what I would really like is for all of Russians to learn English. That'd be good. Probably a little selfish. Yorkshire tea is great too. Yeah, I like Yorkshire tea. Yeah, I'm using Duolingo app. I get what you mean about the wife trying to teach me. Yeah, I can relate. But Duolingo app on the phone is helpful. Yeah, it is. But it's not going to get me to where I need to be. It's been good. It's been helpful. And I know more than I think I do. But it's I've used it, I think, really to start to get a basic understanding. Very basic. Let me make that clear. Very basic. But I will need to get into it in a more in-depth way. Do people often go to car boot sales to buy stuff in the UK? Yeah, it's quite a thing. Sunday car boot sale. Yeah. One man's trash is another man's treasure, is the saying over here. So yeah, turned into a bit of a cottage industry. There are a lot of people that make a living from it. Yeah, there's all sorts that goes on at car boot sales. So yeah, it's quite a common thing for a lot of people. Yeah. However, Cyrillic and Latin alphabets are much nearer to each other. Say Latin and Chinese, or Latin Arabic, or Latin Korean. Agreed, Miss Mouse. Yeah, Cyrillic alphabet. Yeah, I mean, if you look at Mandarin, then you've got to say that Russia is quite easy, or Russian is quite easy. What's Mandarin got? 7,000 characters or something insane. And the Japanese alphabet, I guess, is the same. I don't know. Forgive me, but I've seen the Japanese alphabet, and yeah. I'm finally used to the Cyrillic script. It took tons of practice. Yeah. So I write in capitals. Everything. Because that's how my dad wrote. So I started, and I literally write in capitals. I don't do fancy joined up writing. I don't use upper and lowercase. I just write in capitals. And That's okay when you speak the language, but when you got to learn another language and the alphabet's different, and then it's different again for lowercase and uppercase, it makes it really hard. Really hard. Start from common phrases, not words. Don't care about written words before you. Can't care about yourself. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm certainly not writing anything Russian at the moment. I'm able to read some, but it takes forever. So there's no point in me trying to read a book, because one page will take me a week, because I literally have to translate it in my head. So, who is your favourite Beatle? Well, I quite like a praying mantis, but that's not a beetle. Not every English person loves the Beatles. Do nothing for me, I'm afraid. 60s phenomenon band, I get what they did to global music and yada yada, but yeah, some of the songs I like, yeah, but I'm not a Beatle fan. I don't know anybody that is, to be honest. When it comes to music, I like what I like, and I don't care what genre it is, or who sings it, or who produces it, or whatever. I have no interest in that. I just like what I like, and my musical taste is absolutely varied, very varied. From Pavarotti to Slipknot, Korn to Lady Gaga ish. So my musical taste is hugely varied, but I like what I like. There's also Privyat, yeah, if you're friends and family. Yeah, see, I don't know whether Privyat or... I always get confused, Privyat or Здравствуйте. One is more formal than the other. And when I think I know what it is, my wife tells me I've got it the wrong way round. So that never seems to stick in my head. But I think Privyat is with friends and people you know, isn't it? Friends, family, and people you know. And Strasvicha is more formal. People, something you would say to people in shops, I think. Having genders in the language reflects the mentality. Two genders versus the universal one. Yeah. Yeah, I just don't have the brain to compute it. Yeah. But yeah, no, there are only two genders, as I understand. English has their difficulties too. I've heard a lot of foreigners complain that our language isn't specific enough. Too masculine, feminine, and too many style words. Yeah. English compared to a Russian, English is very, very limiting. English will have one word, and Russians will have 10 words for the same thing. But equally, there are things that just don't translate. For example, cheese. If you want strong flavoured cheese, from what I understand, that's something that you just can't translate. It just doesn't. I mean, my wife and my stepdaughter just don't even know how to ask for that. But that's I think an Englishism. We know what a strong flavour means because we're brought up to understand what strong flavour means. But I don't think that carries across. And I think Russians use a lot of animals for descriptive ways for describing stuff. And it's just a much more varied and colourful language. So compared to English. But I know me and my wife have parrots and pirates. And to her, obviously, it sounds the same. But if you're English, you know what a parrot and a pirate is. Um, yeah. It seems that native English speakers have quite a low learning capacity when it comes to other languages. That's a very polite way of saying thick. The downside of using a language that almost everyone in the world knows. Yeah, it's basic, which, yeah. The trouble is, from what I've seen, Russians will teach English very grammatically. So they will understand adjectives, adverbs, nouns, pronouns, blah, 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 blah. And English people just don't speak like that anymore. And I don't know anybody that would be able to tell me, all of the adverbs and adjectives and what the meanings are. I certainly couldn't. I haven't got a clue. So I wonder if I'm alive at all. I'm more of a Led Zeppelin kind of guy. The Who and Stones came next. Yeah. I'm never really got into Led Zeppelin. I'm a Pink Floyd person, definitely. Some of the Who stuff, some of the Stone stuff, but I'm not I don't mind the odd song. Pink Floyd, but I got into Pink Floyd much later on in life. But like I say, I've got a very varied taste. The shorter greeting is the less formal. The longer one is more formal. Ah, okay. That might help. If I can remember that, that'll be useful. Native speakers read one word like one. I'm not sure what that word is. Nobody I know reads symbols one by one for known words. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the trouble coming from English, learning Russian. We do. And certainly Russian words are spelt how they sound. But you have to understand what the spelling is in the first place. Speaking about music, did you watch Euro? No, I did not. What do you think about UK song? No idea. And especially stage dresses and choreography of the band represented? Not a clue. Did you like the Croatian performer? Not a clue. Simple answer, I didn't watch it. I have no interest in it. I don't know anybody that does. Again, it's another political event. It's not real life. Generally, nobody could give a tiny rat's ass about it. We have a lower learning capacity. It's the motivation. Ooh. What are you saying, Stacey? I'm unmotivated. Did you get your documents for getting back into the country? Yes, I did, Sailor, which is why I've got a big smiley face and I'm super happy, and it's why I'm doing a live. Because I got my visa and it came back yesterday and it made me a very happy bunny. The actual Russian alphabet has been trimmed down since the... What? Trimmed down since the revolution. It was more complicated, I think, before the Russian Revolution. They trimmed down their alphabet. Jesus H. Christ. Long live Pink Floyd. Wish you were here. One of the greatest lyrics ever written. Wish you were here, wasn't it? Jesus. What was it? Did you exchange a walk-on part in a war for a lead role in a cage? How profound, especially in today's world. Yeah, how many people have done that? What you need to learn is just simple conversation without the grammar. A bit like bald and bankrupted. Yeah, I've heard people say bald and bankrupt. No idea what or who bald and bankrupt is. People will still understand you. Most Brits can't understand me, so I've got no chance in Russia, have I? No, I do. I joke a lot. That's my persona. I tend to just make fun of everything. Um, yeah, that's the hardest part is speaking it, because especially when you have somebody that's very eloquent at speaking a language and they can enunciate correctly. Just the same in the UK, you'll get somebody that speaks very, very good English and they enunciate the words correctly. It kind of shows you up a little bit, so you know that you don't sound like that, so it then makes you a little bit frightened of using it, especially when, if you do try to speak Russian and they don't understand you. That's really unnerving, and it puts you off, because you just think, well, I must be saying something so far away from what it should be that they can't even understand me. I mean, if people speak English even very badly, you'll still understand them most of the time. They're in the ballpark and you get it. My wife, she's going to kill me for that one. But yeah, that's the off-putting bit. If somebody sort of looks at me blank, they don't understand what I've said, then you sort of go, oh, and then you rethink it and you try and say what you're trying to say, but you say it differently, and then that makes it even worse. So that's the thing. That for me, that's the thing. Getting over is actually speaking it and having somebody understand what I've said. Once I can do that, then it's a snowball effect, I think. Yeah. How come then that every Brit Aussie always complains about learning languages, no matter if they're Russian or Spanish or French? We'll just go and learn. I think that's a cultural thing. I think in the West there's an attitude, certainly in lower society in Britain, the attitude is everybody should speak English. Let's face it, Brits are lazy when it comes to language. If we go on holiday anyway, we just expect people to speak English. And it's crap, in it. It's really rubbish. I remember my dad, when I was a kid, 3, 4, 5, we would go to Spain because that's what you did in those days. And my dad learnt Spanish because he said it's wrong to go to this country and expect them to speak our language. And yeah, my dad had good morals and good values. But that's what we do. We expect people to speak English. And we're guilty of that ourselves because we've gone to these countries and we've turned it into mini parts of England. The British pub, the English breakfast, yada yada. Yeah, we haven't tried to integrate. For me, I absolutely want to integrate into Russia and the Russian language, but it's just incredibly difficult. At my age, being an English speaker all my life, it's just incredibly difficult. It's not that I don't want to learn it, it's just that I'm really finding it very difficult. I'm not academic. I'm not somebody that's going to sit and read a book, ever. My brain just doesn't deal with that. My brain deals with practical stuff. My brain deals with people. I can manage people without any problems at all. I can deal with practical tasks. I can overcome problems. I'm a problem solver. You know, literally anything you throw at me, I will find a way. But when it comes to study and burying the nose in a book, no, that's just not me. So it's just not easy for me. It's as simple as that. It's just very, very difficult. So consequently, I find other things to do. I prefer. Yeah, well, I like Depeche Mode. So enjoy the silence. Yeah, simpler alphabet was needed as a lot of smart people emigrated away. Yeah. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Is it okay to stay here? Is it okay to stay here? Go Manchester United tomorrow. Manchester United. What's that? Hockey team? Miss Mouse, did you read my last response? Obviously not. It's motivation. Hey. Handbags at dawn. Not even going to attempt to read that. Something about the 9th of May. Victory Day. Congrats on the visa. Thank you. Yeah. No idea. Lots of gobbledygook. This. Cornishnia Etakak. Of course. This is so. Yeah, no. It'll take me forever. Chris, no, I'm not saying you're not motivated, but if you want to learn something bad enough, you'll make the time and find the motivation. I've got to say, Stacey, I disagree. It really, when it comes to something like a language, you can have all the motivation in the world, but if it's not the way that your brain learns, then you've got to find a different way of learning. And for me, my brain doesn't learn from books, ever, anything. I've been successful in my career, but it hasn't been through reading books. It's the practical understanding of tasks, how to complete them, how to motivate people, how to get the best out of a team. That's where my skills lie. The ability to see things that, you know, a lot of the time other people don't, without realising even that that's the case. But that's where my skills lie. It certainly isn't in books. So for me, you know, I've got massive motivation to learn Russian, but I'm going to have to find a way of doing it that doesn't really involve books, because my brain just doesn't absorb that. It just goes, nah. And it takes it and throws it away. And it just doesn't store it. Agreed about Pink Floyd, yeah. Stacey and Miss Mouse, behave. Play nicely, children. That's the trouble with text. I guarantee that the pair of you have misunderstood what the other one's meant. And that's the problem with text, and that's why I banned it at work. It was not an acceptable form of communication. And the reason is, as human beings, we rely 80% on visual cues when communicating. And text, you don't get that. And everything can get misconstrued. And you can type something yourself, and how it sounds in your head, you'll type it. And you'll read it back when somebody's complained about it, and you'll read it back and go, well, how have they got, oh yeah, I see, yeah, oh yeah, if you're looking at it from that perspective, you can think that I meant that. It's terrible. I guarantee that neither of you have understood what the other one's meant, so understand that text is not a good thing. Speak English, French, and a bit of Polish. Some Russian words are the same. If I would learn Russian, I have a small advantage. Pronunciation, yeah. And the fact that you're clever. That'll help. I'm not going to carry on with a bum fight, but really, just moving to another country doesn't necessarily motivate somebody to learn that language. Brits are extremely good at that. Look at the Brit invasion of Spain in the 70s and 80s. None of them spoke any Spanish. Dos cerveza, por favor. That's about the limit of it. Or la quinta, por favor. So 2 beers, please, or the bill, please. So, no, I disagree. Moving to a country isn't motivation for everyone. It will be for some, and it should be for everyone, but Brits are famous for not being motivated to learn another language. So, whereas certainly the rest of the world, the eastern part of the world, they were motivated to learn English because English was the most prolific language at one point. I'm not going to say the most spoken, but certainly everybody, even in Russia, there were two languages on signs in Russia when I first went there, Russian and English. So it's the way the world used to work. Maybe wrong, but I think the Russian alphabet had been influenced by the Orthodox Church and Slavic beliefs. Definitely a rich history in the language development, several hundred years. Yeah. Is siesta a thing in Russia? With the hot weather in your area, it should be. Is for me. Not really, no. No, I mean, Spain, they shut down for sort of 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon, don't they? They don't in Russia. Not in our region. But I'm guessing, really, if you think about it, Spain predominantly is hot everywhere, whereas Russia isn't. It has got a huge range of climate and 11 time zones, I found out a couple of days ago. I thought there were 9, which I thought was bad enough, but 11. Place is immense. It's British football, yeah, I know. I know it is. I just am not a football person. I can't stand football. Bunch of grown blokes running around a field kicking a bag of wind. Not for me. Not my thing. But I understand a lot of people love it. No one said anything about learning from books. I rarely use books to learn a language. For you, it's immersion. Okay, I'll digress. Yeah, no, my brain... If it's uninteresting, my brain stops being interested with anything. I used to do kickboxing, and I packed it up when I bought a house many years ago, and I went to go back to it, but to a different gym, and it was a completely different mentality. It was more about huge combinations and point scoring, and the gym that I had gone to was completely the opposite. It was about looking after yourself. It wasn't about trying to score points, because you don't do that. If something goes wrong on the streets, it's not about scoring points. So it was a completely different type of training, and I had zero interest in it, because it was, I remember one of the first lessons going back to it was the coach to the class was saying, we're going to do a 30 punch combination. 30 punch combination. My brain just didn't get past 5. It was completely, in my head, pointless. And I get, in a boxing ring, if you've got somebody with the same mentality, that you might use something like that. You wouldn't. But in the real world, if somebody... Two things. One, if somebody still stood in front of you after 30 punches, you got a problem. And two, if they're still stood there in the same place after 30 punches and they haven't moved, no. So it's just not real world. It just didn't, so my brain just went, this is rubbish and don't deal with it. So I had no interest in that. And that's how my brain looks at things. If it's interested in it, if it's challenging or technical or something, then my brain will absorb it. And yes, a Russian language is challenging and technical, but it just doesn't absorb it at the moment, but it will. Chris, have you tried to watch old Soviet movies? No, I haven't. Filmed in the times when speaking was slower and clearer and phrases were more... No, I haven't. I have... There was a series that the girls were watching, which looked really funny, I've got to be honest, and I was watching it and found it amusing, even though I couldn't understand what was going on. And it was like spoofs of Western films, like segments, you know, like a bit of James Bond or something else. You know, it was bits, and it was just really funny the way it was done. Bag of wind, yeah, it is. It's a bag of wind, isn't it? Love your channel and watching, but have to go now. Best to you, sir. Have a safe visit. Thank you, Linda. Yeah, I do power it on for a while. Been here a couple of hours, so I probably should look to wind the stream up now, to be honest. 2 hours in, I'm going out tonight for dinner with the kids. So, yeah, like I say, I just wanted to come on and just give you an update on where we are, what we're doing, and back to Russia soon. Be able to start doing Russian stuff, and showing you more of what I've discovered in the country that I'm growing rapidly to love. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Don't know why you do. You must be bored. But thank you. Please like and subscribe. Please share the videos. Please share the channel. Yeah, the more that people see each other's countries, the more Russians that see a UK version, and the more UK and Western that see Russia, the better for everyone. Let's face it. Yeah. Oh, will you fly back via Istanbul as well? Maybe. Maybe. Some gay day comedy may be interesting for you. Pardon? Definitely time to leave. Yeah, thanks guys. And yeah, as I say, see you in the next one.